Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Abhineet Shukla and with me is Renu Kataria, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. India terms China's attempts to politicize the Winter Olympics regrettable, charged affairs of the Indian Embassy in Beijing to skip the opening and closing ceremony. US deploys 3,000 troops to Eastern Europe bordering Ukraine in what Russia declares as a destructive step. India reiterates commitment to extend humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan. At least 2 soldiers killed and several injured in attacks on 2 Pakistani security posts in Balochistan. New Delhi says 7 Indian sailors under Houthi captivity safe according to the family of one of the sailors. India-UK UN consultations held in New Delhi over priorities in the UN Security Council. UK drug regulator approves Novavax COVID vaccine for emergency use listing. India's lunar mission Chandrayaan-3 to be launched in August 2022. And in football, Senegal beat Burkina Faso to reach the final of the Africa Cup of Nations, away the winner of Egypt and Cameroon for the title clash. As the number of COVID-19 cases are rising fast in several parts of the country, we appeal to our listeners to be vigilant and get fully vaccinated and help others, including children between 15 and 18 years, get vaccinated. As the new Omicron variant of coronavirus is causing concern, please continue to follow the 3 simple steps to stay safe. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki doori for social distancing, and focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact the national helpline numbers 011 2397 8046 and 1075. And now the news in detail. India has said that it is regrettable that China has chosen to politicize the Winter Olympics. Replying to media queries on reports of China making Galwan soldier the torchbearer at the sporting event, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi on Thursday said the chargé d'affaires of the Indian Embassy in Beijing will not attend the opening or closing ceremony of the Beijing Winter Olympics.
The Chinese side has chosen to politicize an event like the Olympics. I wish to inform that our chargé d'affaires of the Embassy of India in Beijing will not be attending the opening or the closing ceremony of the Beijing 22 Winter Olympics.
Several nations have announced boycotting the Beijing Winter Olympics for a host of different reasons. Last December, US President Joe Biden announced a diplomatic boycott of the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympic and Paralympic Games. Japan had also said that it won't dispatch a government delegation to the event in February. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan and Russian President Vladimir Putin, however, are reportedly expected to be present at the opening ceremony. Replying to another query on the alleged torture of a youth from Arunachal Pradesh by Chinese PLA, Mr. Bagchi said India has taken up the issue with the Chinese side. In a recent development, an Australian newspaper, The Klaxon, has claimed that China's losses in the 2020 Galwan Valley border clash with India were much higher than reported. Citing a report Galwan Decoded by independent social media researchers, it says that the confrontation witnessed many Chinese soldiers drowning while crossing a fast-flowing sub-zero river in darkness. According to The Klaxon, more than 38 Chinese soldiers had drowned. Following the hand-to-hand combat in sub-zero temperatures, India confirmed 20 of its soldiers dying. However, China has reportedly refused to disclose its total casualties. In February last year, 8 months after the deadly clash, China officially acknowledged that 5 Chinese military officers and soldiers were killed in the Galwan Valley clashes. The report has once again brought out in the open that the manner in which Chinese authorities have been understating while it comes to accepting the fact that they suffered heavy casualties in the Galwan Valley clashes. The United States has announced that it will move approximately 3,000 service members to Romania, Poland and Germany in a further escalation of tensions with Russia over Ukraine. Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby on Wednesday said that the troop deployment is in response to Russia's continuing build-up of forces on its western border with Ukraine and in Belarus. Meanwhile, Russia has condemned US decision. In a statement, the Kremlin said it was a destructive step which heightened tension and reduced the scope for a political solution. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Grushko said it was a destructive and an unjustified step. Russia has amassed an estimated 100,000 troops near Ukraine. It, however, continues to deny any plans to invade its western neighbor.
Afghanistan's ambassador to Sri Lanka has alleged that Pakistan's aggression by proxy and the sanctions that fail to punish what he termed as a rogue state is causing utter destitution, despair and depression in Afghanistan. In a tweet on Tuesday, Ambassador Ashraf Hydari posted the tragic image of an Afghan woman holding up a for sale sign against her daughter. In a strongly worded tweet, the ambassador pointed at Pakistan for the current situation in Afghanistan. Several reports over the past few weeks have underlined the selling of children, including babies, by Afghan families for survival. The head of the World Food Programme had earlier expressed concern over the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan and added that the Afghan people have resorted to selling their children and parts of their bodies to survive. Meanwhile, India's External Affairs Ministry said that the government is committed to extending humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan. Briefing media Thursday evening, Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said the process to procure wheat and to arrange its transportation is underway.
We've always underlined our deep friendship with the people of Afghanistan and have been working to address their concerns. This budgetary provision that has been referred to helps us provide humanitarian assistance as and when required.
New Delhi has said that there is a mutual interest between India and Pakistan to expand the list of shrines open to pilgrims from either nation across the border. MEA spokesperson Mr. Bagchi said that the discussions are ongoing.
We have noted an interest on both sides to expand the agreed list of such shrines and the mode of travel. This would need to be mutually agreed under the protocol. We have sent an official response to Pakistan recommending that given the current restrictions on movement and gatherings in view of COVID-19 pandemic, the two sides can use this time to hold discussions under the bilateral protocol.
Meanwhile, Mr. Bagchi dismissed the allegation of Indian involvement in the discourse in the US to reject Pakistan's appointment of Mr. Masood Khan as its ambassador to the US. He termed the suggestion of Indian involvement in the appointment of diplomats of two foreign nations as preposterous. Earlier, US Congress Mr. Scott Perry has written to US President Joe Biden expressing grave concern over the appointment of Masood Khan as Pakistan's ambassador to the US and called for the rejection of its appointment. The Baluch Liberation Army attacked the two Pakistani security posts in Noshki and Panjgor area of Balochistan on Wednesday. Two of Pakistan's security forces were killed and numbers of them injured. Pakistan security forces released a statement claiming that they have killed 4 Baluch fighters. Meanwhile, Baluch Liberation Army has accepted responsibility behind the attacks, saying that they have killed tens of Pakistani security forces. The attack comes in the wake of last week's attack in the Kech district, which left 10 Pakistani soldiers dead and 2 Pakistani soldiers injured. The attack was carried by Balochistan Liberation fighters on a military checkpost in Balochistan's Kech.
At least 13 people, including 6 children, have been killed in a raid by US forces in Syria's rebel-held Idlib province. According to reports, the overnight raid targeted a building in Atme, a densely populated town in northwest Syria near the Turkish border. Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said that the US helicopters landed in a village where the US-led coalition troops attacked a house and clashed with fighters in rebel-held Idlib. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden termed the operation as a success. In a statement from the White House, Mr. Biden announced that Abu Ibrahim al-Hashmi al-Qureshi, the leader of ISIS, was neutralized in the operation. Meanwhile, the UN in Iraq called for dialogue following attacks by Turkish warplanes on Wednesday, killing at least 4 people. The warplane struck a suspected Kurdish insurgent positions in Iraq and Syria early on Wednesday. In a statement, the Turkish Defense Ministry said the goal of the new aerial defensive was to protect Turkey's borders from terrorist threats. The UN Children's Fund, UNICEF, said on Wednesday that 4 children, 3 boys and a girl, have died and 2 have been maimed over the past week due to explosive devices left behind by combatants. In a statement, the agency representative in the country, Shima Sengupta, reminded all stakeholders that child safety must always remain the primary consideration.
New Delhi has said that the 7 Indian sailors who are under Houthi captivity are safe. Speaking to the media on Thursday, spokesperson of the External Affairs Ministry, Mr. Arindam Bagchi, said that the one-off sailors spoke to his family, who informed the authorities that the 7 sailors are safe. India last Friday called for the earliest release of the Indian sailors under Houthi captivity.
The physical access to the crew has not been made available, including through the UN mission in Hodeida. We remain in touch with various sources, including through our embassies in the region. We do know that the captors allowed one of the Indian sailors to speak with his wife. I think it was on January 28. The sailor told his wife that all the crew members are safe. We will continue to monitor.
India-UK UN consultations were held on Thursday in New Delhi. In a statement, the External Affairs Ministry of India said that both sides briefed each other on their respective priorities in the UN Security Council. The discussions focused on issues related to UNSC agenda, in particular counter-terrorism, peacekeeping, working methods of UNSC sanctions committees and UNSC reforms. Both sides also exchanged views on current regional and global developments. Indian side conveyed its best wishes to UK for its upcoming presidency of the UN Security Council in April 2022. Both sides also agreed to work closely together across multilateral platforms and looked forward to deepening cooperation in the framework of the Commonwealth, in particular leading up to the CHOGM summit in June 2022.
The UN has underlined that more support is needed for thousands still reeling from Typhoon Rai in the Philippines. The UN on Wednesday launched a $169 million revised appeal to meet the urgent and growing needs. The report added that humanitarians said the typhoon has only aggravated a situation that was already fragile due to the pandemic, generating a crisis within a crisis. Typhoon Rai, known locally as Odette, struck the Philippines on the 16th of December, sweeping through 11 of 17 provinces, including some of the poorest parts of the country. At least 50 people, including women and children, were killed in an attack on Tuesday night at a site for internally displaced people in Savo in Ituri province in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The UN said on Wednesday that according to the UN mission in the country, MONUSCO, the attack was carried out by members of the so-called Cooperative for the Development of Congo, CODECO, a loose association of various Lendu militia groups. Briefing journalists in New York, the Secretary General's deputy spokesperson said that UN peacekeepers exchanged fire with the assailant shortly after arriving on the scene. The UN added that 6,989 cases of human rights violations were documented last year in the country, down nearly 12% from 2020.
3 terrorists and 1 army man were killed in a shootout in the Bandarban area of southeastern Bangladesh under the Chittagong Hill Tract area on Wednesday night. Another army man was injured in the incident. According to a press release issued by the Inter-Services Press Relations ISPR, all the 3 persons killed were members of the Jan Sanghati Samiti JSS main group. However, their identities have not yet been established. Our Dhaka correspondent reports that the army got a tip-off about the presence of some terrorists planning to extort money at Bathipara in Ruma. The army team also recovered a cache of arms including 1 SMG, 3 ammunition magazines, 3 guns, 5 bullets, 4 pairs of uniforms and 52,900 taka in cash from the location. Currently, the army is conducting a massive search in the area. The foundation stone for the 3rd border hut at Kamalpur Kumar Ghat on India-Bangladesh border was laid on Thursday jointly by the Chief Minister of Tripura Biplab Kumar Dev and Bangladesh Commerce Minister Tipu Munshi. Inaugurating the border hut, Chief Minister Biplab Dev said that apart from enhancing trade relations between the 2 countries, the border hut will also strengthen friendly relationship between the 2 countries. He said that 8 border huts are proposed to be built on the border between Tripura and Bangladesh, out of which 2 are already functional. High Commissioner Vikram Doraisamy underscored the positive impact of border huts on livelihoods of communities residing in border areas. Border huts have become vibrant centers of trade, people-to-people connect and cultural exchange between border communities. The border hut is spread over 75 square meters and can accommodate 100 vendors on each side of the border.
India and Sri Lanka have signed a $500 million line of credit LOC agreement for the purchase of petroleum products on Wednesday. In a statement, the High Commission of India in Colombo informed that the Export-Import Bank (EXIM) of India signed the agreement with the Sri Lankan government. The critical support comes in the wake of a virtual meeting between the External Affairs Minister of India and the Minister of Finance, Mr. Basil Rajapaksa, on the 15th of January. As Sri Lanka's closest neighbour and long-standing partner, India is committed to assist Sri Lanka in its post-COVID economic recovery. With the recent support, India's overall development assistance to Sri Lanka stands at close to $4 billion. UK's drug regulator has approved the COVID-19 vaccine Novavax on Thursday. In a statement, the UK government said that the vaccine has been approved after meeting the required safety, quality and effectiveness standards. Novavax becomes the fifth COVID-19 vaccine authorized by the UK's independent medicines regulator. Novavax is a protein-based vaccine. This type of vaccine contains part of the coronavirus spike protein. The immune system cells recognize the spike protein as a threat and begin building an immune response against it. In India, the vaccine is produced by the Serum Institute of India under license from Novavax as Covavax. The World Health Organization issued the emergency use listing to Covavax last December. The vaccine is part of the COVAX facility portfolio, which aims to vaccinate more people in lower-income countries.
In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a special program on India's humanitarian aid to Afghanistan. The narration is by Dr. Atul K. Tiwari of AIR News.
A friend in need is a friend indeed. So goes the saying. In keeping with the principles of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, India has once again reached out to the people of Afghanistan with a helping hand by sending the fourth tranche of assistance in the form of 3 tons of essential life-saving medicines for its neighbor on January 29. These were handed over to Indira Gandhi Hospital in Kabul. New Delhi has already provided 3 consignments with 3.6 tons of essential medicines and lakhs of doses of COVID-19 vaccines to Kabul by flights since Taliban came to power in Afghanistan. In a statement, the External Affairs Ministry said in the coming months, more batches of humanitarian assistance consisting of medicines and food grains will be supplied for the people of Afghanistan. After the medicines and vaccines, in the coming weeks, it may be followed up with the delivery of 50,000 metric tons of wheat through Wagha-Atari border. The process to procure wheat and to arrange its transportation is underway. In October 2021, New Delhi had asked Islamabad to allow the shipment of 50,000 metric tons of wheat for Afghanistan as a humanitarian gesture via the Wagha border. The modalities may lead to the transportation of wheat through Afghan trucks as suggested by India. The wheat will then be handed over to UN agencies like the World Food Organization for distribution among the Afghan people. As a part of its ongoing efforts to address the hardships in the troubled nation, India reached out to the 5 Central Asian republics at the virtual India Central Asia Summit on January 27. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and heads of states of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyz Republic, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan decided to continue to provide immediate humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan. A close look at the timeline shows how regular and frequent has been the flow of aid to address the hardships being faced by the Afghan population. The first tranche of assistance was 1.6 tons of medicines from Delhi to Kabul by a Calm Air flight on 11th December. Medicines were handed over to the representatives of the World Health Organization in Kabul for use at the Indira Gandhi Children's Hospital in Kabul. This was a gift from the people of India to the people of Afghanistan. Taliban spokesman for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Abdul Kahar Balki and the Afghan envoy to India Farid Mamunzai appreciated the medical supplies. At the beginning of the new year on 1st January, 500,000 doses of Covaxin were delivered to Kabul by Iran's Mahan Air flight. Subsequently, 2 tons of essential life-saving medicines were delivered to Kabul on 7 January. Taliban spokesman Jabiullah Mujahid posted on Twitter that the Islamic Emirate is grateful to India for its humanitarian assistance and cooperation. The neighboring countries from the region have been forthcoming to acknowledge the flow of aid. Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian spoke to the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar on phone. He offered to help India in the transportation of wheat, medicines and COVID vaccines to Afghanistan through Chabahar port, which is being jointly developed by the two nations. The quest for unimpeded, unrestricted and direct access to Afghanistan for ensuring supply of humanitarian assistance to the Afghan population has been the main plank of India's foreign policy. New Delhi supported the UN Security Council resolution in December last year to help humanitarian aid reach desperate Afghans without violating the sanctions. The Delhi Declaration on Afghanistan at the Regional Secretary Dialogue in November 2021 called for providing assistance and distribution of aid in a non-discriminatory manner to the Afghan people. The much-needed assistance has come at a time when the United Nations has said that 8.7 million Afghans are on the brink of starvation and has sought financial assistance worth $5 billion from the global community. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says it is necessary to avoid a meltdown that would lead to poverty, hunger and destitution for millions. The country is facing a harsh winter. There is an acute shortage of food grains and the economy is on the verge of collapse. The critical humanitarian support by India will provide a fresh lease of life to the Afghan people reeling under the catastrophic hunger and distress. It is also a true reflection of India's commitment to its special relationship with the people of Afghanistan.
This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts. India's Health Ministry on Thursday said 34 states and union territories in the country are recording a decline in COVID cases and positivity rate. Briefing media in New Delhi, Joint Secretary in the Ministry Love Agarwal said 16 states and UTs have achieved 100% first dose COVID vaccination coverage and 4 states and UTs between 96 to 99%. Meanwhile, Kerala and Mizoram are witnessing an increase in the number of cases and positivity. The Health Ministry said that the present data indicates that unlike evidence during earlier COVID surge, surgery is safe with the current variant. Such patients who need surgery can go for it as the new variant is not associated with higher chances of complications or deaths in COVID-positive patients. Government said pandemic situation has improved and there is contraction in spread of COVID infection. The positivity rate is below 5% in 268 districts. The Joint Secretary in the Education Ministry also briefed media and said schools have fully opened in 11 states, partially for higher classes in 16 states and are closed in 9 states. 95% teaching and non-teaching staff in schools have been vaccinated and some states have achieved 100% vaccination coverage. According to the salient features of the revised guidelines for reopening of schools, states will decide whether schools will be required to take consent of students' parents for attending physical classes.
Meanwhile, the Health Ministry dismissed media reports alleging that 50 lakh unused Covishield doses may go waste by the end of February. The ministry said central government has in a proactive manner advised all state governments to review this issue right from the start of COVID vaccination drive to ensure that wastage of vaccine doses is reduced to the minimum.
India's COVID vaccination coverage has crossed 168 crore 40 lakh mark. Union Health Ministry said over 94 crore 63 lakh vaccine doses have been administered as first dose and more than 72 crore 38 lakh vaccine doses have been given as second dose. It said more than 50 lakh vaccine doses were administered on Thursday. The ministry said more than 1 crore 38 lakh precautionary doses have been administered to the eligible beneficiaries so far. Over 4 crore 82 lakh children have received the first dose of COVID-19 vaccine till date. India's Minister of Science and Technology Dr. Jitendra Singh on Thursday said that Chandrayaan-3 is scheduled for launch in August 2022. In a written reply to a question in the Lok Sabha on Wednesday, Dr. Singh said, based on the learnings from Chandrayaan-2 and suggestions made by the national level experts, the realization of Chandrayaan-3 is in progress. Many related hardware and their special tests are successfully completed and the launch is scheduled for August 2022. Several ongoing missions were impacted due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Chandrayaan-3 is a lander and rover specific mission which will demonstrate India's capability of soft landing on a celestial body with the rover then communicating with Earth via the existing orbiter from Chandrayaan-2 and taking images 100 kilometers from Moon's orbit. The orbiter has an estimated lifespan of 7 years. And now we bring you a report from the business world.
At the stock market, snapping 3 days of gains, the Sensex at the Bombay Stock Exchange slumped 770 points or 1.3% to end at 58,788 today. The Nifty at the National Stock Exchange plunged 220 points or 1.1% to 17,560. At the Forex market, the rupee weakened 2 paise against the dollar to 74.86. Amongst global markets, Asian markets ended mixed today. So, Japan's Nikkei 225 index slipped 1.1%, but South Korea's Kospi index climbed 1.7%, and Singapore's Straits Times index jumped 2%. Stock markets in China and Hong Kong were closed for holidays. In Europe, London's FTSE 100 had shed 0.1%, France's CAC 40 had dropped 0.2%, and Germany's DAX had slipped 0.4% in intraday trade. Global crude oil prices fell today following weak U.S. payrolls data and some profit-taking as OPEC Plus producers stuck to planned moderate output increases. So, Brent crude fell $1.25 to trade at $88.22 a barrel. U.S. crude futures dropped $1.10 to $87.16 a barrel. Gold gained 37 rupees to 47,902 rupees per 10 grams at Delhi's bullion markets today. In the international market, gold was trading lower at $1,803 per ounce and silver was flat at $22.55 per ounce. Gaura Dhawanlal for World News All India Radio.
In football, at the Africa Cup of Nations, a Sadio Mane-inspired Senegal beat Burkina Faso 3-1 on Wednesday. With this, the African footballing giant has sealed a spot at the finals of the tournament. Senegal now awaits the winner of the other semi-final between Egypt and Cameroon in the finals. Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. In some reports from the press on China, the Klaxon has claimed that China's losses in the 2020 Galwan Valley border clash with India were much higher than reported. According to the newspaper's report, the confrontation between the two nations witnessed many Chinese soldiers drowning while crossing a fast-flowing sub-zero river in darkness. Uyghur Human Rights Project Executive Director Omer Kanat has said that it is very troubling that the IOC has been so willing to get in line with the Chinese government's own approach to silencing critics. SCMP, in an opinion piece, writes, India and Southeast Asia can save global growth as US and China stagnate. Japan forward quotes Tibet's Sivang Gyalpo Arya saying that boycott will save the Olympic spirit from China. Now let's take a look at what made the headlines in Nepal. The Kathmandu Post reports that half of Nepal's population is fully vaccinated. The Kathmandu Post carried the headline, Nepal brings study on digital currency as India plans to launch such currency this year. The Himalayan Times reports that organizers of the Beijing Olympics have announced 55 more positive tests for COVID-19 at the Beijing Olympics. And now some press reports from Bangladesh. Bangladesh State Foreign Minister Shahryar Khan has said that there is no possibility that US sanctions would be expanded beyond the existing individuals in Bangladesh, reports Daily Star. Prosa Malo reports that the government has issued new restrictions to prevent the surge of COVID-19 in the country. And looking at the press reports from Afghanistan, Hindustan Times reports that India planned to send wheat to Afghanistan back on track, shipment to begin next week. According to the Pajvok, the opening of universities in warm areas of the country has been welcomed by students, professors and women rights activists.
A quick look at the headlines once again. India terms China's attempts to politicize the Winter Olympics regrettable. Chargé d'affaires of the Indian Embassy in Beijing to skip the opening and closing ceremony. US deploys 3,000 troops to Eastern Europe bordering Ukraine in what Russia decries as a destructive step. India reiterates commitment to extend humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan. At least 2 soldiers killed and several injured in attacks on 2 Pakistani security posts in Balochistan. New Delhi says 7 Indian sailors under Houthi captivity safe according to the family of one of the sailors. India-UK UN consultations held in New Delhi over priorities in the UN Security Council. UK drug regulator approves Novavax COVID vaccine for emergency use listing. India's lunar mission Chandrayaan-3 to be launched in August 2022. And in football, Senegal beats Burkina Faso to reach the final of the Africa Cup of Nations, awaits the winner of Egypt and Cameroon for the title clash. And now before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan Vaishnav Jan by artists from Bulgaria. And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.